In the final part of this tutorial, we'll be looking at the methods and connections required to update the names of objects in the scene file. So when a user changes the name in the dialog, it will be picked up in Maya's scene file. The first method, setCurrentItem, will allow us to keep track of the item name that is currently selected. This is going to take in a QListWidget item. From it, we can extract the current name. So if the item exists, we'll set self.currentItemName to item.text. Now this is simply removing the text that's displayed in the dialog box and storing it in a variable. If the item doesn't exist, we'll simply set self.currentItemName to an empty string. The second method we're going to create is called updateName. And again, this is going to take in a QListWidgetItem object. The updateName slot will be called whenever a user changes the name in the dialog. First, we're going to store the new name that the user is given the object. Again, we're just going to retrieve the text from the list widget item. If the name of the item hasn't changed, we're simply done. There's no need to update it if it's already changed. And this can actually lead to an infinite loop if you're not careful. So always check to make sure if the name's changed or not. In this case, if the new name equals the current name, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to return. The second thing we need to check is if the new name is empty. If it's an empty string, we want to set the text in the item back to the original current item name. So if not new name, item.setText is being set back to the current item name. And again, we're done. We can just return. If this is a valid new name, we're ready to update the name inside of Maya. To do this, we're simply going to be calling Maya's rename command. And we're going to be passing in the current name of the item as well as the new name that the user is assigning to it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if the new name already exists in the scene, Maya is going to append a number to it. So we need to make sure that any changes that Maya makes are reflected inside the dialog as well. To do this, we're going to capture the results returned by Maya and store it in our current item name. We're also going to update the item text just in case the name has changed. And that should be all for the method. All that's left now is to make the connections that are required to call these methods when certain events happen. Moving back up to the create connections method, I need to create two new connections. The first connection is for when a different item in the list is selected, while the second connection occurs when the name of an item has changed. So I'm going to create a new connection. It's going to be a signal that occurs from the selection list. And then the name of the signal, which is going to be current item changed. This signal passes two QListWidget item pointers. We need to include this in the signal name. You're going to notice the asterisk at the end. And finally, we need to add the name of the slot that will be called. This will be set current item. Second connection, again, self.connect, is going to be another signal from the selection list. This time, the name of the signal is item changed. This signal passes one QListWidget item pointer. And the name of the slot is update name. And that should be it. If I run the code, and I close down Charcoal, I currently have pSphere1 selected. I'm going to try renaming this to mySphere. I can see in the channel box the name of the object has changed. If I select the cone, hit refresh. If I try to name this mySphere as well, and hit enter, you're going to see that it was renamed by Maya to mySphere1, simply because mySphere already exists. The renaming dialog picks up on this change and updates it accordingly. If I select all objects, let's say I want to call this sphere, 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 sphere. Everything is updated correctly.